Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and welcome to my review of The Internship, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn's newest movie. This is one I had very little interest in seeing. I wouldn't call myself a huge fan of Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, although to clarify, I do like them when they're playing support. I think they're amusing enough that they could definitely elevate a scene, but they cannot sustain a whole scene themselves. So for example, I think Vince Vaughn, he is at his funniest when he's in a more serious movie or he's just not the main character. I thought he was amusing in The Lost World, even if his character was a total jackass, and I liked him in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think he works best in those kinds of roles. And Owen Wilson, I liked him in both Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, even though he did sometimes test my patience. But whenever I see something like Drillbert Taylor, I don't think he's very funny at all. I just think, his brand of humor only works as support. Then like with Vince Vaughn's leading roles, I hated Fred Claus, I hated Couples Retreat. He has plenty of bad ones. But what surprised me was when they came together and worked as a team, they actually made Wedding Crashers kind of funny. I wouldn't call that a great film. I know a lot of people love it. I don't love it, but I do like it. In fact, I'd say it's one of their stronger films. So that was the one thing The Internship had going for it, in that, even if they don't usually carry films very well by themselves, maybe together they can make some magic. But then the trailers came out, and nothing in the trailers made me laugh. I was totally underwhelmed by them. Whenever they'd show up, like, attached to another movie I was seeing, I'd be like, ah, shit, I'm going to have to watch 2 more minutes of this. So that wasn't helping. And then the reviews came in, and for the most part, everybody was unimpressed. Not that anybody seemed to hate this movie, but nobody seemed to like it either. So I had no real reason to watch it, except my dad kind of wanted to see it, and we were going to see a movie together, so I figure, okay, he could choose. And of all the films that are out right now that I would rather see, he chooses the one that I was the least amount interested in. Even After Earth and The Purge, I hear they're both pretty bad, but at least The Purge, I could at least rant about home invasion films, if that's anything, and I was actually kind of looking forward to ranting about home invasion films, and so that has that going for it. And then After Earth, it could be fun to make fun of M. Night Shyamalan and his newest venture, but instead he chooses the generic comedy, and that's really what this is. The Internship is not a horrible film. It's just very fluffy, very by the numbers, and very unremarkable. This is one of those movies I'm kind of going to allude to my review of The Hangover 3, where I said, a good comedy has big laughs followed by a bunch of little laughs, then another big laugh. The Wedding Crashers more or less, had that system going on. This one, it's just the little laughs are being used as the big laughs. The funniest parts are not really that funny. But I will admit that I sometimes did chuckle, I sometimes did smile. I thought it was interesting because the funniest moments in this movie are when they do lean towards a rated R rating. Like Owen Wilson does drop an F-bomb that did kind of make me laugh out loud. And there's this part in this strip club that there was this running gag involving premature ejaculation that I will admit I found a little bit amusing. But even then, I think I laughed only because there was nothing else in the movie that was really doing much for me. So for a joke that even if it had a minimal effect, to suddenly pop up, at least I felt something. So that's probably why I thought those scenes were funny, whereas really they would make better scenes as just, minor laughs in a much better comedy. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. The story goes exactly where you expect it to. The plot is, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn are these 2 older salesmen who their job has become more or less obsolete with Google and the internet coming around. So once they lose their jobs, they decide to, apply for an internship at Google to work there. And the whole joke is that these guys have no idea what they're doing, and they get lumped in with the other oddities in the school, so they have to overcome all these obstacles and get the job. And they're going to get the job because this movie is so formulaic that you could tell they're going to get the job just from the trailers. And so much of it is, even though these guys aren't as well educated as these kids, they have to teach them the meaning of life and stuff like that by taking them to strip clubs. Of course. Yeah, you could tell wherever this movie's going to go, whenever somebody has a love interest that shows up, you can tell where that's going to go. And, when things suddenly start to look up, you could tell, it's going to only stay that way for so long, and then somebody's going to screw up or the villains are going to cheat, and suddenly they're going to have that moment where it doesn't seem like they can recover, but then miraculously do so and win the day. Yeah, luckily with comedies you could survive being a little cliched and formulaic because we don't really watch these films for the story. We watch them for the jokes. And this film just did not have that many good jokes. Once again, Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, they're doing their usual stuff. They're ad-libbing a lot, and they're being total goofballs. And I did like how, for the most part, they are portrayed as competent salesmen. Like during the very first scene, they're trying to pitch to this guy who they're having dinner with, and you could see where these guys would make a career out of this and be successful. But then there are other times where they're just too stupid, and the only reason they're being that stupid is because the director wants to get some sort of laugh there, even if it is very forced. So that was a problem. I don't like inconsistent characterizations in comedies. I always feel that's when they become the most problematic and the most desperate, is when they have to make somebody act out of character for the sake of getting a laugh. But it was fairly breezy. I was never bored with it. Sometimes even the fluffiness, the genericness actually worked to its favor. So even when the film becomes sometimes a little bit too depressing, it'll pick back up, and that helped. But you could also kind of tell that originally they're apparently they had a rated R version and then a PG-13 version, and they weren't sure which one to release, and I think they ended up going with the PG-13 version. And there are times where you could tell the movie was definitely originally supposed to be a little bit edgier, but they had to change that. That did not work in the film's favor, and I wish, because the funniest parts were the parts that almost seemed like they belonged in a more edgier rated R movie. So maybe it would have been better if it was the rated R version. I don't know. But I can't really say much beyond that. I do think that Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson have chemistry, but the script just didn't give them very much to work with. And their brands of ad-libbing, I just don't think can carry a film, at least single-handedly. With The Wedding Crashers, it did feel that they had a more substantial script, and actually maybe even more so, I did feel the supporting cast often were able to help carry the film with those two. Will Ferrell had a great cameo in that movie. The chick from Enchanted was great as the crazy love interest for Vince Vaughn. That, I think, really, in many ways, made that movie. Whereas here, the supporting cast does fine, but they just don't have much to do with either. Their characters are very cliched and stereotyped and boring. You know how they're going to develop. I did like, I think he's mainly known for being on Jon Stewart's show, but I mainly know him for being the guy from The Last Airbender. Probably not something you want to be remembered for, but I thought he did pretty good. He was pretty amusing, but he's not in the movie that much. But I'm sorry, that's really all I've got. Would I recommend it? It would make an okay rental if you like these guys, if you like Owen Wilson or Vince Vaughn, but I don't think you should go to the theaters and see it. I actually even preferred The Hangover 3. The Hangover 3 was, I don't know, in many ways more disappointing, but I also felt that it had a few more laughs than The Internship did. Yeah, that's just how I feel. I did not do a written review of this. What was the last written review I did? I know I did Detective D and the Mystery of Phantom Flame. I believe that was the last one. And then my next one will be Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which was much funnier than this. And that is a slasher film. So yeah, so check that out whenever I release it. Will there be a new critique in the critics this week? I have no fucking idea. I've just had a real nasty week at work, so I'll try, but I make no promises. I've broken too many of those. So that's all I've got. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, and I can't wait for next week because there's actually two movies I'm looking forward to. Man of Steel and shoot, what was that other one? I think it's like This Is the End. That looks a lot funnier than this was, and it's actually getting pretty good reviews, so I'm excited to see that too. So that's all I got. I'll see you guys next time.